Dear Gabby, lately I've been thinking deeply about compassion and how selective society can be with it. A woman shared a story online about taking a walk after a stressful day at work. She was simply trying to decompress when a car full of young men drove past and shouted hateful racial slurs at her, completely unprovoked. What hurt me wasn't just the hatred. It was the realization that hate is taught somewhere before it is performed publicly. Children are not born knowing how to dehumanize people. Somewhere along the way, silence became permission. Conversations never happened. Compassion was never demonstrated. Humanity was never practiced enough inside the home. And then I started thinking about another kind of compassion we rarely talk about. Many people know how to show kindness to visible disabilities. They'll hold a door open for someone in a wheelchair or speak gently to someone visibly struggling physically. But what about the people whose challenges are invisible? What about the family member who always felt different but grew up in an era where nobody tested for autism or neurodivergence? What about the friend who struggles socially, emotionally, or mentally but has spent decades masking it because nobody understood them? What about the people society labels as awkward, too sensitive, strange, or difficult, when really they've been trying their whole lives to survive in a world that never fully understood how their mind works? Sometimes people aren't rude. Sometimes they're overwhelmed. Sometimes they aren't cold. Sometimes they don't process emotions the same way. Sometimes they aren't hateful. Sometimes they were simply raised in environments where compassion was never modeled. I think the world desperately needs more grace, not just for people who look like us, not just for people we understand, not just for people with visible pain, for everyone, because every human being is carrying something, someone trying to understand humanity better.
Hey family, tonight I want to talk about compassion, real compassion, not the kind that only appears when it's convenient, or visible, or socially acceptable. I mean the kind that sees humanity first, the kind that pauses before judging, the kind that remembers that every person we encounter has lived an entire life before crossing our path. Recently, I read a story from a woman who was simply taking an evening walk after a stressful day. She was trying to decompress, clear her mind, breathe a little, and a group of young men drove by and shouted hateful racial slurs at her. Just like that. A moment of peace interrupted by ignorance. And while reading it, one thought kept echoing in my spirit. Hatred is learned. Nobody enters this world already knowing how to devalue another human being because of the color of their skin. That lesson came from somewhere. Maybe from conversations inside a home. Maybe from jokes left unchecked. Maybe from silence. Maybe from watching adults treat certain people as less than. And that's why the phrase, each one teach one, matters so deeply. Because compassion is also learned. Children watch us carefully. They learn from how we speak to waiters, how we treat strangers, how we react to people who are different from us, how we discuss race, religion, disabilities, politics, and humanity itself. Sometimes we think, well, my child knows better. But did we actually teach them better? Did we teach empathy? Did we teach emotional intelligence? Did we teach them that every person deserves dignity? Or did we assume the world would somehow do it for us? Because if we don't intentionally build a foundation of compassion, the world will gladly build a foundation of division. And family, I want to gently expand this conversation even further tonight. Because compassion doesn't only apply to race. It applies to invisible struggles too. There are people all around us who have spent decades feeling different and never understanding why. Especially generations born 30, 40, 50 years ago, when many neurological conditions weren't discussed openly, when autism spectrum diagnoses were rare, when emotional and social differences were often dismissed instead of understood. Some people were called weird when they were overstimulated. Some were called lazy when they were mentally exhausted. Some were called cold when they simply struggled expressing emotion conventionally. And many of those beautiful human beings are still here, still navigating life, still trying to belong in families, workplaces, friendships, and communities that often misunderstand them. That deserves compassion too. Not pity, compassion. There's a difference. Compassion says, I may not fully understand your experience, but I still honor your humanity. And honestly, imagine how many relationships could heal if we approached people with curiosity instead of immediate judgment. Imagine how many families could reconnect if they stopped labeling one another and started asking deeper questions. Imagine how many children would grow into emotionally healthy adults if they learned that kindness is strength, not weakness. The truth is, everybody wants to feel safe somewhere. Everybody wants to feel accepted somewhere. Everybody wants to feel seen. And if we are blessed enough to recognize hatred, ignorance, or cruelty for what it is, then we also carry the responsibility to model something better. Not just online, at home, at dinner tables, in car rides, in private conversations, in how we speak when nobody outside the family is listening. Because that is where humanity is truly taught. And before I go tonight, I want to leave you with this thought. The strongest people in this world are not always the loudest people. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who choose compassion in a world that keeps rewarding cruelty. So be patient with people. Be thoughtful with your words. Be mindful of assumptions. And remember, not every wound is visible. Not every struggle has a diagnosis attached to it. And not every battle is announced out loud. But every human being still deserves compassion. With love and light, Gabby.